Test 1, Test 2. Test 1, Test 2. Steelers Depot live stream, February 10th, 2020. Let the chat fill up as we usually do. Here for about a little less than an hour, probably what it's going to be for today. So let me know if you guys can hear me. I'll explain in a second why there's no game film. And while we're just looking at the Steelers Depot logo for the chat today, I will explain why that's the case once the chat fills up. Hey, Mutated Genome, thanks for being here. I know you're here every single week, so I certainly appreciate the support to the channel. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. Again, I'll be here for about an hour, as we always are. At least that's our intention, every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So hopefully get some more people in the chat. Again, I will explain, once we get a couple people in at least, because I know I'll have to repeat myself a couple times, why we're not watching the game film tonight. And we'll just be looking at this, but I think the way these chats have gone, most people just really do the question and answer, and it's less about us actually watching the tape, although we do certainly some of that. And hopefully I'll have some more videos out during the week. Dave Ryan, his mock draft just went up a little while ago this afternoon on Steelers Depot, his first mock draft of the offseason. I thought it was really interesting. I overall liked it. Have some disagreements with it, of course, but that's natural. So you can check that out on Steelers Depot. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And hopefully everything's going to be good audio-wise. Really no video, obviously, to look at right now. So yeah, here for till about 8 o'clock, a little before 8 o'clock. Samantha Eckhorn, appreciate you being here. No, you're always here, just like Mutated Genome, every single week, so I certainly appreciate the support. I'll explain to the people that are in the chat right now. I know there's only a couple of people, but I'm not having a game film playing this week, just out of an abundance of caution with copyright stuff. I got one random copyright strike on an older stream from about a month ago the other day. So I just want to kind of review everything there, make sure that was just a one-off thing. I think I know why I did that. I got that copyright strike, but just be careful with that stuff, that copyright claim from the NFL and YouTube. So just doing the image this week, no game film right now. Still going to have videos and other content, stuff like that. But my concern was with the live stream and playing a lot of tape, that might open up to some more copyright eyes. And I just want to be careful with that for at least a week and just make sure that it's not this huge issue that's going to really be problematic for the channel. Mutated Genome, going back on with Stan anytime soon. Not sure. I haven't talked to Stan in a little bit. I will say, though, he's doing an awesome job. He's got several interviews on Steelers.com talking with Steelers of the 70s. I think Stallworth, Mel Blount. I listened to the Mel Blount interview today. They're like a half hour, which is really good and in-depth, and they're fantastic kind of time capsule to go through those guys' careers, and Stan conducts those interviews on Steelers.com. So check those out if you haven't yet, because they're really a treat, especially for a guy like me that obviously didn't watch the 70s live, but can kind of reflect and knows the history and can listen to those guys talk about their experience, which is pretty cool. So again, no game film. I know I repeat myself a lot here, but probably people are going to be wondering, and maybe that's going to not have the chat as active. That's kind of my guess. We'll see, though. No game film, just out of an abundance of caution for copyright stuff. I hopefully will have it back. I just want to take this week and kind of just make sure things are cooled down. It's not going to be this giant issue. So that's the reason why you're just looking at the black screen right now. Maybe we'll do face cam later. Our setup isn't really great for that right now. I got to clean and look more presentable. But I'm here to answer any questions. You guys have any questions about the offseason, the draft, free agency, this past season, next season, whatever's on your mind, feel free to leave them in the chat below. I'll be here for about an hour or less, just kind of depending on how things go chat-wise. And I'll be happy to answer anything that's on your mind. And again, our goal is to be here every Monday evening, 7 p.m. Okay, no game film. Yeah, I mean, I figured most people didn't seem to really talk to the game film a whole lot. I mean, obviously, I'd rather have some sort of image here going on to kind of give you something to watch during the stream. So maybe I'll go back to the game film. Maybe I'll do something else. I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'll mix it up. Still want to do some more videos though. I keep talking about the pre-run defense, but with Dave gone for the week, I'll probably definitely do that to get some content out for the site and for the channel during the week. So that's what's going on there. Have some draft profiles. I got a draft profile on Wisconsin running back Jonathan Taylor that will go up in the morning. I think we have Scott Pavelli. He's got, I believe, a big board that's going to come out, I believe, on Wednesday morning. That's what I'll have it scheduled for. And those are always really in-depth and thorough and certainly worth taking a look at. Allie Howard, appreciate you being here. You, like the others, have been here, I think, every single week. So I certainly appreciate that consistent support. Cecil Clark, great job on the 7 Steelers who rebroke the color barrier. Thank you, Cecil. I appreciate that. That was a really fun article to look at. I love Steelers history. You know, the thing with Steelers history is everyone kind of, not everyone, but a lot of fans kind of only talk about it, only look at history in the lens of, you know, the time Chuck Noll got here, where there was like one losing season, there was nothing but Super Bowls. But there was such a long period of time where the Steelers weren't successful, but they still were around with just a ton of history to look at. 1933 to 1968, the pre-Noll era. Not a lot of wins to talk about, but certainly a lot of stories. And so I've always wondered who were, you know, the first players to reintegrate once the NFL reintegrated. We knew Ray Kemp was the first black Steeler to ever play for Pittsburgh, the Pirates they were called back then in 33, but I didn't know who was that next guy. And the history books do accurately, in a sense, say that Jack Spinks, a fullback drafted in the 11th round in 1952, was the first black Steeler to play in a regular season game since Ray Kemp, but there were, as I found out, 6 other Steelers that were part of that training camp and preseason roster, and those stories deserve to be told as well. So it was really cool to kind of go back through a bunch of old newspaper clippings. David Orchena helped out a lot with the research. I appreciate his help. So thank you for that, and I think it turned out really well. And just I love that history. Anything pre-Noll is kind of my lane because no one really talks about that aspect of Steelers history. We should definitely keep doing the movie suggestions. Yeah, if there's any movies I should watch, let me know. I'm bad with movies, as you've probably found out if you listen to the podcast. But I'm looking for some movie suggestions, especially in the off season when things kind of slow down. Thank you, Mutated Genome. Yeah, we'll have more film breakdowns. Like I said, we'll have something on Dupree a little bit later this week. I can almost guarantee that. And whatever else I come up with. But again, no game film right now, just because I got a copyright strike and a little leery of doing another live stream with full game film just because of that, but hopefully we'll bring it back. Again, I think I know why I got the strike from about a month ago. It was just one stream, so it wasn't a bunch, which is good. I think I probably clicked on a broadcast view of a game, and that's what got me the strike. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what it seemed to indicate. So I just want to do this right now. I know it's not the most exciting thing. The chat's probably not going to be as active as the past, but that's probably just the best thing right now. Or I could, I don't know, bring up the Steelers roster and we can kind of talk about the Steelers roster or something like that. I guess I can bring that up because it's not gonna cause any sort of issue. Just to kind of give you something to look at that's not, you know, the black screen here. That probably isn't very exciting. So I can kind of scroll around the roster a little bit. So let me do that. I don't know how easy that is to see. It doesn't look like it's fitting perfectly on the screen. A couple of futures guys, John Battle and Anthony Johnson. Johnson's an interesting guy. He was, you know, a pretty talented receiver out of Buffalo. It's so tough for some of these receivers to get drafted because you got so many draft eligible guys. It'll be like that this year in a strong receiver class. But there's a guy that caught my eye when they signed him to a futures deal. When can teams trade players in the offseason? That's from Samantha. At any time, I believe. I don't think there's any period where they can't trade players. It generally doesn't happen right now. Once you kind of get into league meetings and the whole NFL comes together, sometimes that'll kick up trade talk, and then as you get closer to free agency and the draft, that's possible. A lot of teams obviously aren't doing a lot of trades right now because free agency is looming, and they want to see what their offseason plans are, who they can re-sign, who they can sign on the open market as opposed to trying to trade, and then usually failing, being able to maybe sign somebody or you lose somebody in free agency. Then you look to make a trade, and certainly on draft day, the trades will come pretty quickly. So I think you can do it right now, but generally this time of year, you don't get a whole lot of activity when it comes to trades. And the NFL in general has fewer trades than basically any other sport. I think it's increasing, but obviously compare it to basketball or baseball or hockey, you get a lot less action and activity than the NFL. So we can scroll around here. Mason Rudolph, obviously coming off a tough year. Steelers have committed him to be the backup in 2020. Let me know if you guys like that approach or you think it's the wrong approach. Jordan Berry, had I think a really strong first 3 quarters to the year and then just kind of imploded at the end. So I don't want to forget what he did the first 12, 13 weeks, but basically from that Arizona game on, we had the fake punt miscommunication mess, and from there on it was a mess. But it was a really strong 75% of the way for Jordan Berry, which is far from perfect. You want it to 100%, obviously, but I do want to at least recognize that with Jordan Berry. Got to sign a punter from the XFL, Marquette King, as a suggestion. Yeah, that's possible. I think the Steelers generally, though, look more towards directional and hang time, as opposed to King, who's got a really big, like, obviously he can directional punt and had that awesome punt in the XFL that really landed at the 1 till, for whatever reason, that linebacker teammate dove on the ball into the end zone to create a touchback. But I think they probably wouldn't sign King because he's generally more of the big booming open field type punter, and that's generally not what this team looks for, especially in a year where Ben's going to come back. He's picked this offense to perform much better, and you're going to be more focused on directional and kind of coffin corner type punts. Hey, Chad, you're here. I appreciate you stopping by. I know you've been meaning to get around to the chat for a couple weeks now, so thank you. He says, 2 years ago, there used to be an article on Depot where posters ranked the players entering the draft by position order from 1 to 10. Any chance of bringing it back? I'll have to go back and look at exactly what you're talking about. I don't have a vivid memory of what article that is. I mean, I believe you when you say that, but I have to go back and look at how exactly that was structured and how that was kind of set up to really give you a good answer. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. I don't know who was doing it. I don't think I was doing it. Maybe it was Dave or Matthew or someone. So I'm not sure why it stopped. I'd have to go back and look and kind of jog my memory a little bit. But yeah, that is possible. Certainly going to need something to talk about this offseason because there won't be a whole lot of action in free agency to discuss. It will be a very quiet free agent season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hey, Grant. Appreciate you being here. Samantha. Yeah, there was some issue where Gruden cut King in Oakland basically right after Gruden got the job with the Raiders. I don't know what the details were or anything like that, so I couldn't tell you for sure. But yeah, there was some sort of issue. You're right, Samantha, between Gruden and Marquette King. Cecil Clark, Alex, do you think Mason can replace Ben, or should we draft a quarterback next year? Now, when you say next year, are you referring to 2020 or 2021? I'm not in favor of drafting a quarterback in 2020. This upcoming draft in 2021, that's possible. Obviously, that we'll see what happens this time next year and kind of where Ben's at and Rudolph's at and his progression he shows in the preseason training camp. So I'm open to that idea for next year because I think ideally you'd want to sit there and say Ben comes into the office one day and says, okay, guys, this year, let's call it 2021, is my last year. I'm going to be retiring after this year. I want to let you guys know ahead of time. That's my intention. And then you probably draft that guy in that draft class, before Ben's final year, have him sit for a season, and then he, hopefully can be the replacement. Now, can Mason be that guy? Again, I think 2020 is going to help tell that story. Obviously, I think the chances that took a big hit based on his play last year, but he ended it on a positive note, and let's just see how he looks after a year of a roller coaster ride that was 2019 and how he can bounce back from that. I don't want to say that he can't bounce back from that. We've seen quarterbacks struggle out of the gate and then kind of pick themselves off the mat. So I don't want to assume anything with Rudolph, but I think the approach is no quarterback this year. See how Mason improves, and then once hopefully you'll know, assuming a good rehab for Ben, once he's in his final year, then that draft prior to Ben's final year, I think is where you attack a quarterback, assuming that Mason hasn't shown himself to be the guy. Yeah, 2021. Okay. Yeah, I think that's possible. I think anyone trying to mock a quarterback to the Steelers in 2020 is just wrong, and those are generally outside perspective of people that don't understand the situation, which is fine and happens. I mean, I get it. But yeah, 2021, I'm a lot more open to drafting both quarterback and running back, as James Conner presumably will be a free agent at that point, as opposed to this year. So where I'm kind of hesitant on quarterback, running back this year, I'm, again, a lot more open to it next year. Yeah, Grant, I think that was a situation with King, but yeah, I don't know if he'll be in the cards for Pittsburgh. My guess is no. Rob Coe, with Minka trade as president, do you think there's any chance we pursue Jamal Adams with Terrell Edmonds in either 2020 second or 2021 first? No, I think Adams is going to cost more than that. As much as I would love to pair Minka Fitzpatrick with Jamal Adams, that'd be the best safety duo in football by far. He's going to want big money soon. I don't know exactly what his contract status is, but he's a couple years in the league. He's going to be coming up. He's got a fifth-year option, but that's going to be expensive, and he'll probably want a deal before then. So they're not going to make that move. They still like and trust Edmonds. And I think, again, Adams is going to cost more than what you're proposing there. 406 King T, Ducky, better than Rudolph. They both have their ups and downs. I do think that, Hodges' highs were higher than Rudolph's highs last year, if that makes sense. They both had pretty similar lows and some equally terrible moments. I do think Hodges probably showed a little bit more consistency, at least early on, and his best moments were brighter than what Rudolph did. But it was obviously a difficult situation, difficult year for both those guys. They'll go into camp. They'll both be in camp this year in 2020 and this summer and see what the progression is. And that'll be the most important litmus test for those guys as opposed to what happened last year. Le'Veon Bell returned to Pittsburgh. I think on paper it would make sense. I think in a perfect world the Steelers will be open to that. I believe the reports they were interested in Bell at the deadline, but financially and contractually, even knowing that the Jets would be on the hook for that guaranteed money, there's just really not a way to make it work. Bell's base salary in 2020, I believe, was $8.5 million. This is a Steelers team that has about $1 million in cap space right now. That's about the franchise tag. Bud Dupree for $16 million. It's going to have to make a lot of cuts just to get to that point, and possible restructures. Almost likely restructures, I should say. So I really don't see contractually how you could take on Bell's contract in a moment like this. With a running back group that is returning, that there is not like there's no one. Got Connor, health, again, the obvious issue. But he's there, and he's talented. Snell, who I think the team likes, and I think had a pretty impressive rookie year, and then the rest of the backs as well. So I think if cap space wasn't the issue, sure, I think that's something that is certainly possible, but I just don't see it happen because of the financials. Grant says, Alex, I know the wide receiver coach thing is up in the air right now, but do you expect either McClendon or Cotchery to have their fingerprints on the offense along with Matt Canada this year? It's hard to say. It's hard to quantify and really know their type of role. First year in, maybe a little less so. Maybe they get more comfortable. Potentially more of an influence, but they all have an influence. They're all part of the game plan. It's hard to really know the specifics of who's doing what. Usually it's those guys file reports, and then assistants file reports too. It all goes to Randy. He kind of helps put things together, and everyone kind of works together to tweak it. Is kind of the rough understanding of how the situation works. But I think Canada might have more of an influence because he's been offensive coordinator before, and that's going to help. He's going to be a quarterback's coach. Anytime you're working with the quarterbacks directly, you're probably more involved with the game planning because the quarterback has to know what everyone is doing. So I think it kind of naturally lends itself to Canada having potentially a bigger influence than, say, a McClendon or a Cotchery. Canada a little bit older than those guys as well. So that would be my rough answer, but it's hard to give you anything concrete or specific. Again, thanks for everybody being here. Stream here till about 8 o'clock. Again, no game film for this week just because I got a copyright strike a couple days ago from YouTube, from the NFL, and a little worried about that. It was on one of the live streams about a month ago, so I just want to take a week off from that, kind of reset, make sure it's not going to be another issue in terms of more strikes over the next week. Hopefully return with it next week, maybe in a different format. Maybe I'll have something else to play. I know this is kind of static and not the most exciting thing in the world, but we didn't talk to the game film a whole lot anyway, so I figured, okay, it's not the most crucial thing to the live stream. It's usually more of a question and answer format, so we'll just do this for now. So that's the explanation, if you're wondering why we're not watching the All-22 right now. But I will have videos and cut-ups and stuff that certainly cannot be copyright claimed because they're certainly, I think it's all original content, the live streams included, but certainly a video that's edited and not showing half a game the way live streams were, no chance really to be copyright strike there. At least it shouldn't be. So just want to throw that disclaimer out for anyone joining the chat. Michael, thank you very much for telling people to like it. If you like the live stream, like and subscribe. I don't like to promote that too much. I think people can get annoyed by that, and I understand. So I don't talk about it a whole lot. But hopefully the channel keeps growing. I know it will kind of be a lull for the off season, but I still will have content coming out like these live streams every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's the plan. If it changes, I'll let you know. Try to keep the schedule consistent as possible. But yeah, supporting the channel would be appreciated. And thank you, 406 King T, for doing that. Yeah, Michael, I'm with you. Bell, not likely to return to Pittsburgh. Rob asks, do you think there's any chance the Steelers bring back Sean Davis so they can play him in center field, have Edmonds and Barron's roll on some downs, and play Minka on the slot? No, I don't see Davis returning. This is a guy that's been a starter for, 2.5 years now. I don't think he wants to come back in a backup niche role, if at all possible. At least he wants to test the market and see if he can get a starting job or compete for a starting job. And they still like Edmonds. He's 22. Supposed to be his rookie year. Remember, he came out a year early out of Virginia Tech. So I don't see Davis coming back. And though I don't think he'll be extremely expensive, I don't think he'll take the minimum either. I think he'll cost a couple $1 million. I think Chuck Clark and the Ravens just got a 3-year, $16 million deal as kind of a 1-year part-time starter, basically. And I think Davis can certainly get at least that. I think that's kind of his market coming off the down year, unfortunately, with the injury, the torn labrum he suffered in week 2. So I think that's probably his market, at least $4 to $5 million per year, compete for a starting job. That's not going to be in Pittsburgh. Cecil asks, do you think it's risky signing Bud to a long-term deal? No, I don't. I mean, obviously there's risk inherently with any contract, so I don't want to say like there's no risk to it. Obviously, there's risk to it, and I understand the argument of, well, he's what you're paying him for 1 year production. If he didn't have this kind of season this year, and he had a very similar season to the previous 4, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And I get that, but I really do. And I said this even before the season began, that health was the biggest thing for Dupree, and he'd always played through injuries, and he was a tough guy, and he played through them, so he wasn't on the injury report often, didn't really miss many games, especially these last 2 years prior to 2019, and so people just thought he was healthy, and they don't really buy the excuse thing, but he certainly was hurt if you read some of the media reports and some of his own comments and things like that. So I think him being able to be healthy, play with power, just get more practice reps, and just feel good really helped unlock this type of year for Dupree. So he's been a guy that's always worked hard, has shown great effort, fanatical effort against the run, a really strong motor. So he's not a guy I'm worried about taking plays off. So even if hypothetically the sack numbers, which can be a little up and down, they can fluctuate. If they're on the downside a little bit, you're still going to get really solid run defense. I still think you're going to get a good pass rusher. I'm a really high effort, high volume snap type player that can be an impactful guy. So if he was just strictly a pass rusher that was just like a little skinny edge rusher who could only be situational on third down, then there's a concern. But Dupree is the whole package, and so I'm confident giving him a long-term deal. Michael asks, what do you think of Bryan Edwards? Available in the 4th, I think Pittsburgh will take him. He reminds me of Juju Jr., and with the Steelers probably hiring his receiver coach from South Carolina. Yeah, we talked about that, Dave and I, on the podcast today. I haven't really gotten to his tape yet. Dave seemed a little mixed, maybe a bit disappointed by what he saw, but looking mid-round receiver, I think Draft Countdown has him as a number 17 receiver. A really deep class, so that's going to help push everybody down a good bit. I think that's possible. Would he be my guy? I really couldn't say right now. Probably not. I've looked at more slot guys, or maybe you want someone that's more of a classic burner that runs sub 4.4, and Edwards will not do that. He's going to run probably 4.5 something. It seems to be the guesstimation. So I don't know if the fit would be ideal. But I just want talented guys, and he had a good career at South Carolina, and you're right. Yeah, they hire McClendon, then you got that connection. Matt Sims, Steelers assistant, was the assistant, I think, grad assistant at South Carolina, I believe, during Edwards' freshman and or sophomore season. So there certainly are South Carolina connections to be found there. So I understand what you're getting at there, Michael. Samantha, I understand, and that's what everyone says is Bud going to be the next Woodley. But again, Bud's worked really hard. He's gotten in great shape, and I don't see him taking the contract and running kind of the way where Woodley did, where he struggled with his weight and injuries and stuff like that. The fact that Dupree has shown really strong effort throughout his whole career, even when he was struggling, the effort was never an issue. Tells me he's a hard worker, and he's not going to be lazy and take for granted even after getting paid. He's a guy to play with a chip on his shoulder, and I think he wants to prove that he wasn't playing for just a contract, and I believe him. I believe most players aren't playing for just a contract. Rob asks, how much of Justin Lane do you think we will see starter? Maybe have him come in on nickel package with Nelson in the slot. No, as a backup. Now, potentially as a top backup, maybe. Kind of see how the preseason in year 2 goes for Justin Lane, but obviously, the cornerback situation is going to be essentially unchanged, minus Artie Burns being a free agent and going elsewhere. It's going to be Nelson, Hayden, Hilton, and then Sutton's going to work in dime packages. And obviously, nickel, I don't want to kick Mike Hilton out because he's the best run stuff in corner, or at least maybe top 2 with Kenny Moore of Indy in football. And then Sutton, I don't want to kick him off the field after having really a breakout year in 2019. So Lane's going to be a backup at best. And even I think if hypothetically Hayden or Nelson go down, I think you kind of look at Cam Sutton play on the outside before Justin Lane. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see what progress he shows in year 2. Talking about Lane, I was nervous with the pick to begin with. I talk about the hip stiffness and the lack of long speed. It's kind of a worrying combination. It's kind of a taller guy that Lane is, and I saw some of that, this year in the preseason and training camp. But he was a rookie underclassman, I believe. I think He's an underclassman, so we'll see what kind of improvement he can make. But he's not going to start, and I don't think out of the gate week 1 he's going to have much of a role in this defense, and I am okay with that. I'm trying to think. Let me before I answer any more questions, I want to edit the name of the stream to a Steelers question and answer, because I think maybe that'll help bring in some more people. So let me see if I can find a way to do that here briefly. I'm still going to be obviously talking and doing with the chat. Is there a way for me to edit this while I am streaming? I don't have to go into YouTube Studio and Creation Studio and all. That's going to be such a mess. I apologize, but I'd love to be able to edit the title of this stream quickly if I can. I think I found it. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I just wanted to change the just try to bring some more people in. I wonder if that's going to be possible. So hopefully that'll change the chat. Thank you for your patience, and hopefully that change actually saved. Okay, back to the questions. Chad asks, do Steelers leave Feiler at tackle, move him to guard? Do you trust Chooks or Banner as a starter if they move Feiler inside and draft Wood Young I'm not sure exactly what, I think you're just asking whether they draft a center guard or a tackle guard prospect. Okay, a lot of questions there. I think it's more likely than not that, assuming that Foster and Finney are gone, which has not been guaranteed, obviously Foster's under contract, Finney's yet to be a free agent, but I would expect, given the cap situation, that Foster's going to be a cap casualty, unfortunate as that is, and Finney, I can't see any way they bring him back, especially if they decide to cut, really, or to keep Foster, I guess, to look at it. So you'll have a hole at left guard. I think the presumption is that Fowler will get kicked to left guard, but I don't want to assume that 100% because we just don't know. Obviously, they moved Fowler for the Rams game last year. He's played guard before. In some ways, you could argue he's a more natural fit. Like their guard's big, so I mean, it makes a lot of sense. But I also don't want to 100% assume that. But that is my presumption. So to the second part of your question, do you trust Chooks or Banner as a starter if they move Fowler inside? I think they'll battle it out. And I think that kind of helps, competition. You push each other and the cream rises to the top. So I think both guys have a lot to prove in the show. Banner's a guy that's worked his way up the ladder, but he's always been in a make the team, get back in the league, be a niche 6 offensive lineman type guy, not an every down player, and that's what he's got to prove. Can he do it? Possibly, but he's got to show that. Chooks obviously coming off a poor year. It was, I think there were very few players that were disappointing last year as Chukwuma Okorafor, so we thought, okay, he could even battle Feiler for the starting right tackle spot. Not even a competition in camp. Feiler won that outright. It was not even close. And then Banner takes his spot. Okorafor struggled in training camp in the preseason, was inactive for a large majority of the season. Started the one game against the Rams, did okay. He's had some tough matchups when he's played against Denver in 2018, against Von Miller, against the Rams in 2019. They have been tough assignments, but he's been just okay. So, but I think you let him battle it out. Ideally, that these guys have had time to grow and to develop and to learn and get better. You would expect to see the best version of themselves. We're not asking a rookie to come in right away and be a starter. We're not asking someone that's been not on this team for a while now to come in and produce right away. These guys that have been in the system by now, been coached by Sean Surratt. They should be close to kind of who they're going to be as offensive linemen. Still room to grow, whoever becomes starter, but they should be the best versions of themselves and really no excuse not to play well this year. So short answer is we'll see, but I wouldn't be too worried about it. And then would they draft more of a center guard or tackle guard prospect? It could be either way. I think you have to find someone who can be a backup center, assuming Finney's not around. There's really no one else that can snap Feiler in a Hubbard-like emergency situation could do it, but you really don't want Matt Feiler playing center. And that's really about it in terms of guys that are on the roster right now. So I would lean towards finding someone who can play center. That would be my answer for you, Chad. Do you think the Steelers want to and will be able to re-sign B.J. Finney to start at left guard? No. I think just in principle, cutting Foster to keep Finney is not a good message. Cutting one of your veteran locker room leaders to sign Finney is not generally the right way to run your locker room, and that's an element you have to consider. And also just, again, you're cutting Foster. If you do it to clear cap space, signing Finney would probably eat up all that cap space and probably a couple million or two extra. So it kind of defeats the point of releasing Foster. So no, I don't expect that to happen. Grant says, don't know if you've talked about Dulac's report on Dupree on the podcast, but do you have any belief the Steelers don't really have any interest in re-signing Dupree? That's news to me. Okay, you're saying, or have any intention to re-sign him, just tag him and play it out, I guess is what he said. Well, they're definitely going to tag him. I mean, how strongly worded Tomlin and Rooney's answers were with Dupree when Rooney says someone's a priority. I mean, he's going to be retained in some capacity. It's at least a franchise tag. I don't think anyone likes the franchise tag. I don't think the player likes the tag. I don't think the team likes the tag. Obviously, want to work out a long-term deal. So the player is not having this conversation next year, so the team isn't having the same conversation this time next year. So I take that with very much a grain of salt. I think they would love to do a long-term deal with him. Again, considering how strongly they've advocated and admitted basically they're going to retain him in some form or fashion. But I didn't see Dulac's exact report, so I can't comment on that 100%. We have not talked about it on the podcast, again, obviously news to me. But we know they're going to tag him. I mean, regardless of anything else, we know they're going to tag him, and that's the bottom line. Bud Dupree will be a Steeler in 2021, or 2020, I should say. Whether that's a long-term deal or a franchise tag, I couldn't tell you, but he will be a Steeler, and that's all that matters right now. Dragon says what happened to Brian Allen, just really couldn't make the conversion. Just didn't work out, and so he got cut. Trying to think what his exact timeline was. He got cut, I think, during training camp. I believe he was waived injured, I want to say, and I don't know if he resurfaced since. But just didn't work out. Tried to take a flyer on an athletic former receiver, converted to corner, and they don't always work out. Hopefully Justin Lane has better results than Brian Allen. If Bud doesn't resign, what will the Steelers do for agency or draft? I guess you'll have more cap space, and that could open things up, assuming you still make those cuts. But if they don't keep Bud, then maybe you don't feel as compelled to make some of those cuts with guys like Barron and Foster and the like. Vance, they probably draft, but the edge class is weak. And again, I don't even entertain the thought too much because I'm very convinced that they will, as I just told Grant, have Dupree under contract in some capacity, tag a long-term deal for 2020. Grant says I don't buy that report just because I feel like they want to keep Bud long term. They can lower the first year cap hit with an extension. Sure, I agree. I don't know if you give a long term deal just to lower the cap hit, but I understand what you're saying, and I agree. I think that there's interest to do if there's interest to tag, there's interest to do a long term deal. And again, the tag it's a big number. The scary thing about the pass rush, front seven is a 2. It was out most of the year. It could be even a lot better next year. So from M. Kaiser, yeah, I agree. He was the best player on the team by far before he got hurt. So I think that's a great point, and I'm excited to get Stephon Tuitt back. Crunch asks, would I pick a running back in a second? If yes, who? I like the Ohio State kids. No, I wouldn't take a running back in the second. I've said that a lot. No, I just don't have interest there. I think that in a perfect world, I would, or at least I entertain the idea. If you had more cap space, you could fill more needs and address stuff in free agency, less holes on the roster to deal with. But I don't think you have that kind of luxury this year. There's too many other holes you need to address. You got Connor back. You got that whole group back. It's not like you're losing guys. At nose tackle, you're losing guys. Interior offensive line, probably losing guys. Tight end, you may not have Vance. Safety depth is non-existent. There's nobody there, so don't have a lot of interest with addressing running back. And I think that's one of the bigger disagreements that I would have with most of the Steelers media and or fan base. But I'm not expecting a running back to be taken really at all right now. Maybe they bring in a bunch of guys with pre-draft visits, and my stance will change in terms of what will happen. I'm not in support of the idea of taking a running back, though, very high. And I don't want to take one late because then what's the point? You got another niche guy in the rotation of a million already running backs, and I don't even see the value. I guess if you do it early to kind of get the guy as opposed to doing it late, but I'm not really in favor of either. 406 King T, assuming Benny Snell makes a typical second-year improvement the last couple of Steelers running backs have made, can he be an every-down workhorse back? Yeah, I think that's possible. I think he had a really strong rookie year. I think we kind of overlook and forget how good his rookie year was, even coming off meniscus tear and surgery, and I think he ran well. That I forget what game it was, but the first game back, maybe Arizona, was excellent. So I was really happy with his progress. Can he be an every-down type of guy? I think it's possible. I don't know if he'll ever be even on Connor's level in terms of just talent, and he won't be at Bell's level, but he can block. I think he did at Kentucky and was more advanced for most rookie backs. He had his issues in pass pro, but was better than James Conner was, for example, in terms of pass pro their rookie years. And I think he is an underrated receiver. So I think they like him. I liked his rookie year, and that's another reason why I wouldn't draft a running back in very high or really at all. one of his chats. Yeah, that's the thing with Dulac and really any of these media chats. You don't know what is opinion, what is his source, what is stuff that's off the record. You can't really say on the record, but you kind of hint at. I mean, you never really know where that's coming from when it comes to some of these beat guys, and I don't begrudge them for holding those chats. I mean, they have value and a chance to interact with the community, but it's always kind of hard to parse that type of language. Dulac said something the other day that was similar, where it was kind of vague, and I forget what it was, but you get that stuff from time to time where it's really kind of hard to know how serious to take that. And again, like I said, take that with a grain of salt. Ali Alrobi, I appreciate you being here. Thank you everybody that's been here at the chat. Again, no game film, just out of a copyright concern, weird thing, long story. Just doing this for now. Hopefully, I'll have the game film back next week, another video. So just if you just popped in, that's the reason why. To your question, I saw some film on Juju and how often he was open on slants, middle of the field. Do you think Juju was number one with Ben? I think so. I don't really view stuff in terms of number one, number two. I don't even know really how to quantify that. I just look at just your starter. What position are you going to play? How do you win? Those are the things I look at. I think Juju is capable of starting and playing well and winning to a lot of areas of the field. And obviously with Ben back and him being healthy is another critical element. Will all be a good thing for Juju in 2020. So yeah, I think he can bounce back in a big way. I'm not worried about that too much. Michael T. Well, I'm pretty sure the best run blocking alignment will be the second round pick, and the third round pick will be a tight end. And what do you think? It's hard to put that stuff in a box and say, okay, they're going to draft a really good run blocking lineman in the second at 49, third round will be tight end. I mean, you really can't project those things with any level of certainty, even on draft day, even on day 2 of the draft, certainly even day 1 of the draft. You just really don't know how things are going to go. Now we're sitting here February 10th trying to project that. I mean, again, I think that I put those 4 top needs of tight end, interior offensive line, interior defensive line / nose tackle, and safety depth, and I think you just kind of find the most talented players that fill those holes early on in the draft, and that's how I would approach it. So I can't say, okay, let's definitely take a cornerback, or not cornerback, but let's definitely take a lineman at 49, then we'll take a receiver in the third round. You'll make mistakes when you do that. I mean, I said cornerback, gaff there because that's what happened with Artie Burns. Artie Burns happened because they were hell-bent on taking a cornerback. They were going to take William Jackson III out of Houston had he lasted one more pick. Cincinnati snags him, 1 pick ahead, so they go, okay, let's take the next cornerback on the board because we need a cornerback. They take Artie Burns. They arguably they did. They reached for Artie Burns both at the time, and then obviously it didn't work out once they hit the field and you go through his career. So that's the worst thing you can do is lock yourself into, we're going to take position X with this draft pick, because that's when you put the blinders on and you miss out on good talent and you generally reach for players. So I have the 4 needs. We'll find out who best fits the value that also addresses one of those 4 needs. Juju can't handle the pressure is number 1. I'm not even sure what that means. Like, mentally, I mean, I don't, even if that's true, how do we really know? I don't think that's the concern, to be honest. I just think the quarterbacks were hurt. He was hurt. The offense was kind of a mess. Still a bad year for him, even when he was out there. He still didn't play well, or not well enough, not even close. But to say things like that, he can't handle the pressure, I think that's a little unfounded, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, I'm glad the chat's busy tonight. I appreciate everybody being here. I know I say that a lot, but I do. I just wasn't sure how stuff was going to go. If you're any player on the roster you want me to talk about, I can talk about that as we kind of scroll through. I'll kind of have a better system for next time. Does the NFL claim videos when you use game film? Yeah, I got one random copyright strike on a live stream in January, and I think because I accidentally, I don't know exactly how it works, but I've gotten more copyright kind of issues and stuff when I've used broadcast tape. That's why I use the coach's film, and I really don't want to use broadcast tape. I think I said that in a video a while back because I think it lends itself to more of a chance for being copyright striked. And I think I kind of got one where I might have clicked off of switching games or something like that, where it showed the broadcast view for a second, and that might have been what happened. I'm not 100% sure. I couldn't go back and see. My video was pulled down. You can't see it. I can't see it. I don't have it saved anywhere else, so I don't really know what happened. So I just want to take this week, maybe just make sure things calm down, nothing else happens, and then we'll kind of get back after it this week. But I think this is original content. We're watching film together. We're looking at specific plays. We're doing question and answer, certainly on the videos where I edit. They're not live streams. It's all 100% original content, if you ask me. So that's the reason why we're not doing game film this week. Just abundance of caution. Grant asks, assuming no running back is taken this year, do you foresee a battle between Jalen Samuels and Kerrith White for the third running back spot, or do you keep both? They could keep both. They kept 5 running backs on the roster at one point last year with Edmonds included in that group as well, so I don't want to assume anything. I don't know. That's a good question. Because obviously you have Connor and Snell, and then where do you go from there? Generally, they keep 3, and then Rosie coming back. I think obviously Rosie went on IR last year, and you kind of kept 5 running backs because you didn't have a fullback to occupy one of your roster spots, so you really couldn't see them keeping more than 4 running backs. That's for certain, but generally they go 3. So that's a good question. That'll be one of the camp battles, absolutely, Grant. So I couldn't give you a straight answer on that right now. JP Fitta. Thanks for being here. That's a relatively new name, I believe. Is there any player that could regress heavily this year? That's a good question. I have not thought about that a whole lot. Regress heavily. I don't know. No one obviously is coming to mind immediately. I'm trying to think of more veteran type players. I mean, Dupree, sack numbers can fluctuate. I mean, you never know exactly how they're going to go. I think he's going to still play well. Pouncey's getting older, but I still don't expect really a whole lot of regression. If they were to keep a Barron or keep a Foster, I mean, that could be one of those names, but I'm expecting those guys to be cap casualties. I don't know. You guys let me know who you think could be a candidate for regression this year. I mean, I'm just trying to think, going through the roster here, who could potentially be that guy, but it's a pretty young team. It's not the, remember Warren Sapp always used to call this team very old and all that. They're not really that kind of team anymore. I mean, obviously you got Ben. I mean, you got only a handful of guys. Well, a lot of them are 30, maybe about to turn 30. But, I mean, is Vince going to regress? I think he's a pretty steady guy. Is Villanueva going to regress? I don't really think so. Pouncey, Hayward's not going to regress. Hayden may come back to earth a little bit on the INTs, and you do worry about, lack of long speed. But, I mean, he just came off a great season, so it's hard to really say he's going to regress. De Castro, no. Barron, if he's there, I mean, yeah, it's but possible. Vance, he can't regress any more than he did this past year. Alu maybe comes down. I mean, that was just kind of a really good year, and that was awesome to see from him. But it's kind of hard to see him do it again, and obviously he'll be playing less, fewer snaps with Tuitt coming back. So maybe Tyson, but yeah, no one's really coming to mind. Yeah, Cecil, Juju, and Connor, 2 have had costly fumbles, absolutely. Dave won't let you and Dan V do a podcast without him, or what? No, we could. He just kind of handles the recording of everything. So, I mean, I don't want to screw something up, and he's got all the software to help record these podcasts and upload the podcasts and put it in all the places it has to go. So, we won't do a podcast till he comes back. We'll have one on Tuesday. That's fine. Again, we'll have this live stream. I'll have another video that comes out probably later in the week to kind of help supplement a podcast. So it's not that Dave wouldn't let me. It's just he kind of controls all those things, and everything's kind of built in on his end because he's been doing the podcast obviously before I came on board. I know we didn't see much of him, but do you think Gilbert III could be a sub-package player, or is he special teams only material? From what you've seen, I mean, assuming Barron's cut, I think it's going to be really just Vince and Bush as the guys on defense to start. The year. I think you'll see Vince in base and a nickel, and then Bush in dime. And I don't think that really leaves a home immediately for Gilbert, but I was really impressed by what UG3 did as a rookie before he went down with that back injury. I think he had a really good camp in preseason. Obviously made the roster, was doing really well in special teams, and I think there's athletic foundation and a basic overall talent that says he can play on defense someday. So I don't think it's going to be out of the box in 2020, but obviously he could be next man up. If Vince or Bush would ever get hurt, there's really no other options, again, assuming that Barron's cut. And even if Medikevich is still on the roster, I think he's going to... I mean, I think you could say that Gilbert's maybe the MAC linebacker backup, and Medikevich maybe the Buck linebacker backup. He's going to play a nickel and base. I mean, that'd be interesting if he's retained. I don't know exactly how that would go, but, to kind of sum up, I think UG3 is talented and someone that can play on defense at some point in his career and not just a special teams guy. So I think to start out of the gate in 2020, that'll be his primary role. Crunch. Will there be any quality tight ends in the 3rd or 4th? I don't believe in the number 1 or number 2 either. I think that's total ego unless you're Moss, Rice, Fritzy AB, guys like that. Yeah, I agree with that. With you there. Crunch. Will there be quality tight ends in the 3rd, 4th? Yeah, I think there will be. I think it's a pretty deep tight end class. I don't believe it's a super top heavy class. I think they're kind of all jumbled together. The combine will help separate themselves some more, but There's no one that's slam dunk first round. This is the tight end to have if you need a tight end, which is good for Pittsburgh anyway, because if that guy existed, they wouldn't have a chance at him because they're picking at 49. So I think people are going to like Trotman, Hopkins, Thad Moss, Cole Kmet, Albert O from Missouri. I could give you a whole list of names here of other guys I'm sure I'm forgetting right now. I'm trying to think of other guys that were at the Senior Bowl. Jared Pinkney from Vanderbilt. I think Mitchell Wilcox from South Florida is interesting. So I think there'll be a lot of options. They're all going to have their pros and cons. No one's going to be a perfect prospect. If you're looking for that, just not going to happen. But I think there's good depth there that says, yeah, there will be some talent that will drop and be available for teams in the mid-rounds. I expect regression from Pouncey because his game has always been, I'm the most athletic lineman. Yeah, I mean, Father Time always wins. And obviously Pouncey snaps were an issue last year. But I still think he played well, snaps aside. Will the regression happen? Sure, at some point. Centers generally don't play into their 30s. Pouncey is, how old is Pouncey? He's 30. Generally 33, 34 is kind of the end of the line for basically every center in football. So, fair point, but I think he's still playing well. Did you watch XFL this past weekend, and if so, what did you think? That's from George Tesson. I did watch it, at least the first game on Saturday. I don't think I watched anything on Sunday. I watched a little bit, I think, of the second game on Saturday evening. I liked it. I mean, it was football, and that's always nice. I think people kind of got a little too over the top with it, talking about, how cool is the replay reviews and the Xbox controller, and they interviewed this guy, and he dropped an F-bomb, and that's slightly entertaining, but is that going to be really sustainable? The AAF was doing transparent replay reviews and stuff like that, and people kind of lost interest pretty quickly, and I don't think the XFL is so radically different that it's like, whoa, what's going on here? It's basically still football. Now, there are cool things with it. I like the kickoff rule, and I think it's something the NFL may adopt as opposed to just banning kickoffs altogether. I think it's something that could stick, and the quality of football was not terrible, but we had this story with the AAF where there was a lot of excitement in week 1. Week 2, it faded pretty quickly, and by midseason, no one was really talking about the AAF, and the league folded. It all comes down to financials, and can you make it financially, feasible, and can you make it work money-wise? That's doomed every other failed league that's ever come across, and that'll be the ultimate question. And it does feel like the XFL has a better base and foundation in terms of the financials run by Vince McMahon as opposed to the AAF and leagues before it, the USFL and UFL or whatever, the ones that have existed. So that'll help, but you gotta worry about the long-term sustainability. So 1 week of it is not enough to make me say, okay, this is gonna work. I'm not confident in that because history says they all tend to fold because NFL runs king, and it's just hard to make that sustainable all year round. Steven Nelson might regress. Yeah, I mean, just because he had such a good year, but he'll regress to just kind of regress to the mean in the sense of, you can't. It's hard to not give up a touchdown pass for 2 straight years, so point taken there, Samantha, but I still play well, I think. I don't expect him to play poorly, but he just might not play at that crazy high, shutdown level he played at 2019. That's a fair point. What do you think about Minkah saying he's willing to be moved around, and how would you expect him to be used if that's the case? Yeah, I think he wants to be involved in the defense. You don't want him just in center field, not being targeted. It'll be easier for offenses to try to not throw near him if he's just playing in center field. So I do want him to be moved around and force offenses to deal with him, because that's a player of his caliber. You want him to make an impact every single game, not just kind of taking stuff away. How will he be used? I don't know. I mean, he can be used in a lot of different ways, stuff more line of scrimmage. I think he can do a lot of slot work. I think you could have him and Cam Sutton kind of switch roles, or Mike Hilton switch roles sometimes, and have him play as an underneath kind of overhang hook defender, or play, man coverage on a slot receiver or a big tight end or something like that. So I would probably look at a lot more slot work for him. But I do want to see him move it around, absolutely, and I think that they will be able to hit the ground running with that in year 2, with the secondary being identical. I mean, there's no one new coming in, which is really good. That hasn't happened in a while. Even this past year, Minkah got traded early on, and Steven Nelson got signed, and it kind of let them. They were a little limited early in the year in terms of the coverages they could call. And now you can just kind of hit the ground running right away, because it's the same group returning basically top to bottom in terms of your starters, and provided everyone is healthy, you got a really good group that can really be creative. So excited to watch those guys. As for regressing, Actually, let me get to Grant first here. I personally prefer White over Same, which is because White has a different dynamic, the offense, and no other running back on the room can provide. Totally understand. I've been talking about this team needing to kind of shed its let's draft every 225-pound plus running back that we can possibly find. That's what the whole roster is made up of, except for Gareth White Jr. So I think that kind of infusion of speed and explosiveness and just kind of different style is refreshing. It has not been around enough, so I understand that. But we'll just hope it plays better. And Samuels has things he can do well too. As a receiver, in terms of the frame as a blocker, he can offer those things. White might be a little bit more limited. As for regressing, I worry about Big Al. Yeah, but he hasn't played a lot of football. Like, he's 31, but he didn't start playing football until his mid-20s. So it's not like he's been playing since he played in Army and stuff like that, and was with Bengals, I think, before service or right after the Eagles. I think it was Bengals before he came back. He was with the Eagles. They cut him, defensive lineman, defensive ends. He just turned him into an offensive tackle. But he has not played a lot of football. There is a worry with the injury, because he's always had those shoulder problems, which worry me. And I think for being a big, long guy, that's something that's not going to go away as time goes on. And he's a guy that, and I'm speaking at a turn here a little bit, because I don't know what's in his head, what's in his heart, but he's a guy that clearly is so much more than being a football player. He wasn't a football player initially. He was an Army Ranger and a veteran, and he's got his business degree at Carnegie Mellon. I've seen those stories before. So, is he a guy that can retire, next year? Possibly. I mean, he could retire kind of at any point, just kind of walk away from the game, not feeling so attached to it. A guy that played football his whole life and kind of defined himself as a football player might be. So that's somebody that could up and retire kind of at a moment's notice, and that's awesome. I mean, you do whatever's best for you. So that's a guy that he might have some regression. I worry about the injury concerns, and that might kind of push him towards let's walk away while my body's still mostly intact. Again, I'm very much speculating here, but I've always kind of had that thought of this is a guy that does not need football. He's got some money. Obviously, probably wants to get paid more. He's been underpaid now for a couple of years, taking that kind of team-friendly deal several years back. But this is a guy that could retire, and it may shock some people because it may happen sooner than you think. But it wouldn't shock me because he's a guy that is so much more than football. I think Sammy Coates would be a better option than Holton, a receiver gunner. What do you think? I think they tried Sammy Coates and it didn't work too well. And not as a gunner. Holton's bread and butter special teams. He's a great coverage guy. Coates is not really an asset there, and Coates seemed to struggle still with catching the ball in the XFL, and some things never change, and so I don't have any interest in bringing Sammy Coates back. Do you watch any other sports besides football, like hockey, baseball, basketball, or baseball? If so, what teams do you follow? Yeah, I'm a Pittsburgher, so I'm more casual with the other sports, just because I can't be as hyper-focused as I am with the Steelers. But yeah, I'm a Pens fan, Pirates fan, regrettably. I like college football. I'm a big Idaho Vandals fan, if you didn't know. Go Kibby Dome, go Potatoes. Fortunately, they got bumped down from D1 to the FCS level, which I think they're in the Big Sky. The Big Sky Conference now. And then for basketball, I've become more of a Phoenix Suns fan since there is no NBA team here. That I've kind of faded from Phoenix because they kind of faded too, and I probably need to watch them some more. But I do like the Phoenix Suns, so making some bad choices there with Idaho and Phoenix. But I do follow other sports. Yeah, Holton, is not going to offer you anything as a receiver, but you can't say Holton couldn't catch a pass because Sammy Coates could not catch a pass. And Holton's going to be more special teams, and so that's the deciding factor. A couple more minutes here, then I'll have to wrap up the chat. Again, we'll be here every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Appreciate everybody sticking around. Question from Ali Howard Species, 5618. Any thoughts on the ex-Steelers in the XFL? Eli Rogers seemed to play well. I think he was the leading receiver in that game. Had 5 catches for 74 yards. I didn't really watch the other Steelers. I know there were a ton of them. Coates again had that drop. I forget there were a bunch of ex-Steelers in the XFL, so I don't have a whole lot of thoughts. But Eli played well. Apparently, some really tragic news for him. I think his mother passed away earlier in the week or last week, and so he was dealing with that with a very heavy heart. And I think they were talking about that. Raheem Moore was in the press conference after the game. So definitely thoughts and prayers for Eli Rogers, a really good dude. Hope he gets back in the NFL, and if he keeps playing the way he's been playing, or at least played in Week 1 of the XFL, he'll be back in the NFL in 2020 in a camp somewhere. Former Pitt running back Darren Hall is a beast in the practice squad. Yeah, another big guy. It's 220 plus pounds and had a great average last year at Pitt. I think broke Dorsett's record for yards per carry, something around 7 yards. But another big back. What are you going to do differently than the other 27 backs that are huge on the roster? So he's got to show something different, show something on special teams. Hey, Robert from Idaho. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't go to Idaho, but I played with them on NCAA 14, and I remember watching Rob Akey and Nathan Enderle, their quarterback. I watched those guys growing up and in high school and stuff, and liked that team. They had those couple really good years, and they fell back down. But love Coach Akey, love Nathan Enderle, and I still think Enderle could have been a good quarterback. He got hurt by Mike Martz in the 5th round by the Bears. That was the lockout year. They were going to play the Hall of Fame game. That was the only game that got canceled. Enderle would have probably played in that game, didn't. Never lasting in the NFL. Martz gets fired, and that kind of ends it. But Eric Greenwood, the big tall receiver, Enderle to Greenwood was like the connection. I remember back in 2011, 2010, somewhere around there. So go Vandals. Nice to have a Idaho alum here. Thank you, Grant, for Phoenix Suns. Yeah, they got off to a good start. Then they've really tanked. They're sitting a couple games under 500, and that's where they've been for most of the season. Philo left guard or right tackle next year. I believe it'll be left guard. Not going to guarantee it. I don't want to. I think myself included, has kind of been assuming it a little too much that he will shift to left guard, but that does make the most sense. And again, let's see what happens with Foster because he's still a Steeler. Not a guarantee he's going to be cut. Has not been cut yet, but I think Philo ends up at left guard. Miami Heat fan for Grant. Nice. I kind of like Miami as like a kid in like elementary school because I'm from Florida, but never really stuck with me. So now I'm Phoenix. Joe Hayden, top 100 players this year, or no? Based off his play alone, yes, in 2019. Will he be on the list ultimately? He probably would be somewhere between 90 and 100. Would I put him on my list? Close, maybe. Probably be in that 90-100 list. I don't have a list, obviously, of top 100 players. We'll see. But if he is, he'll kind of be on that very edge of it. I know Tyler Johnson got waived. Yeah, I mean that trade they made last year, and I mean he kind of fell out of the rotation. Didn't play a whole lot this year. Saw limited minutes, and I think his minutes decreased as the year went on. So yeah, couldn't trade him at the deadline. They didn't make any move at the deadline, and so that's what happened with him. Should Kerrith White get more snaps next year? He's going to make the roster first, but I'm intrigued by his skill set. Steelers record prediction for next year, I have no idea. I mean, I'm loath to do those things. I'm bad at talking about those things. I'll probably give it the classic 10-6 as every Steeler fan will do, but I have no idea right now. Let's let them free agency, draft, camp, and ask me then. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the stream. Thanks to everyone who's been here. Really appreciate it. Again, we're back Monday, 7 p.m. Hopefully with game film. If not, I mean, this seemed to work pretty well. The chat seemed pretty lively. So thanks for all the support. Like and subscribe if you would like to. If not, that's fine. As well, we'll have some videos later in the week. Again, I keep talking about the Bud Dupree run defense article video, but that should come out sometime this week. And we'll see what else I can do without a podcast. Maybe I can add something else in its place. So thank you guys so much for sticking around, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.